Little Red Riding Hood by the Brothers Grimm. Illustrations by Daniel Ignace. Once upon a time, there lived a dear little girl. Everyone who met her liked her, but the person who loved her best of all was her grandmother, and she was always giving her gifts. Once she made her a little hood of red velvet. It was so becoming to her that the girl wanted to wear it all the time, and so she came to be called Little Red Riding Hood. One day, the girl's mother said to her, "Little Red Riding Hood, here are some cakes and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She's ill and feels weak, and they will make her strong. You'd better start off now before it gets too hot, and when you're out in the woods, look straight ahead like a good little girl, and don't stray from the path. Otherwise, you'll fall and break the bottle, and then there'll be nothing for grandmother. And when you walk into her parlor, don't forget to say, 'Good morning,' and don't go poking around in all corners of her house. I'll do just as you say," Little Red Riding Hood promised. Grandmother lived deep in the woods, about a half-hour's walk from the village. No sooner had Little Red Riding Hood set foot in the forest than she met the wolf. Little Red Riding Hood had no idea what a wicked beast he was, so she wasn't in the least bit afraid of him. "Good morning, Little Red Riding Hood," the wolf said. "Good morning to you too, Mr. Wolf," she replied. "Where are you headed so early this morning, Little Red Riding Hood?" "To grandmother's house," she replied. "What's that tucked under your apron?" "Some cakes and wine. Yesterday we did some baking, and grandmother needs something to make her better, for she is ill and feeling weak," she replied. "Where is your grandmother's house, Little Red Riding Hood?" "It's a good quarter of an hour's walk into the woods, right under the 3 big oak trees. You must know the place from all the hazel hedges around it," said Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf thought to himself, "That tender, young thing will make a nice, dainty snack. She'll taste even better than the old woman, If you're really crafty, you'll get them both. The wolf walked beside Little Red Riding Hood for a while. Then he said, "Little Red Riding Hood, have you noticed the beautiful flowers all around? Why don't you stay and look at them for a while? I don't think you've even heard how sweetly the birds are singing. You act as if you're on the way to school, when it's really so much fun out here in the woods." Little Red Riding Hood opened her eyes wide, looked around, and saw the sunbeams dancing in the trees. She caught sight of the beautiful flowers all around and thought, "If you bring Grandmother a fresh bouquet, she'll be delighted. It's still early enough that you're sure to get there in plenty of time." Little Red Riding Hood left the path and ran off into the woods looking for flowers. As soon as she picked one, she spotted an even more beautiful one somewhere else and went after it. And so she went even deeper into the woods. The wolf ran straight to Grandmother's house and knocked at the door. "Who's there?" "Little Red Riding Hood. I've brought some cakes and wine. Open the door." "Just raise the latch," Grandmother called out. "I'm too weak to get out of bed." The wolf raised the latch, and the door swung wide open. Without saying a word, he went straight to Grandmother's bed and gobbled her right up. Then he put on her clothes and her nightcap, lay down in her bed, and drew the curtains. Meanwhile, Little Red Riding Hood was running around looking for flowers. When she had gathered so many that she couldn't hold any more in her arms, she suddenly remembered Grandmother and got back on the path leading to her house. She was surprised to find the gate open. And when she stepped into the house, she had such a strange feeling that she thought, "Oh, my goodness, I'm usually so glad to be at Grandmother's house, but now something feels really strange." Little Red Riding Hood called out a greeting, but there was no answer. Then she went over to the bed and drew back the curtain. Grandmother was lying there with her nightcap pulled down over her face. She looked very odd. "Oh, Grandmother, what big ears you have! The better to hear you with." "Oh, Grandmother, what big eyes you have! The better to see you with." "Oh, Grandmother, what a big scary mouth you have! The better to eat you with." No sooner had the wolf said these words than he leaped out of bed and gobbled up poor Little Red Riding Hood. Once the wolf had eaten his fill, he lay back down in the bed, fell asleep, and began to snore very loudly. A huntsman happened to be passing by the house just then and thought, "How loudly the old woman is snoring. I'd better check to see if anything's wrong." He walked into the house, and when he reached the bed, he realized the wolf was lying in it. "I've found you at last, you old sinner," he said. "I've been after you for a long time now." He pulled out his musket and was about to take aim when he realized that the wolf might have eaten Grandmother, and that he could still save her. Instead of firing, he took out a pair of scissors and began cutting open the belly of the sleeping wolf. After making a few cuts, he caught sight of a red cup. He made few more cuts, and a girl leaped out, crying, "Oh, I was so terrified. It was so dark in the belly of the wolf." Although she could barely breathe, the frail grandmother also found her way back out of the belly. Little Red Riding Hood quickly fetched some large stones and filled the wolf's belly with them. When the wolf awoke, he tried to race off, but the stones were so heavy that his legs collapsed and he fell down dead. Little Red Riding Hood, her grandmother, and the huntsman were elated. The huntsman skinned the wolf and took the pelt home with him. Grandmother ate the cakes and drank the wine that Little Red Riding Hood had brought her and recovered her health. Little Red Riding Hood said to herself, "Never again will you stray from the path and go into the woods when your mother has forbidden it." The end.